All right. Morning, everyone. Let's see here. Okay, John and Ben are helping out with notes and don't have any new introductions today. So action items, we only have two this week, one for Ben, one for me. Ben was going to start collecting photos of people wearing e-NABLE devices for a gallery that we talked about. Any updates there, Ben?
Yep, I got a message back from folks in Turkey. They sent some specific photos that they said were fine to share. I also emailed all the chapter leaders from the chapter spotlight series. We heard back from, I just checked the email this morning, folks in Handling the Future.
Okay.
Um,
So when we get those images, you know, there's a gallery in the e-NABLE hub. I already set up a gallery so we can add them in there. Either we can create a new gallery for this or we can use the existing one. But we need to identify the device types because I think that was kind of our goal here is to show each design. So I'm thinking we could do that one of two ways. Either we could create, you know, separate subfolders or albums or however it works for each design, or on each individual photo, you can actually put comments or, you know, notes or whatever. So you could just, when you upload the photo, if you just put something in the comment there that identifies what that design is, one of those two would be, either one of those would be fine, but we do want to identify the device type in each photo.
Right, and I think it might be worthwhile. I mean, again, this is, as far as I understand, it's going to be sort of like maybe a one-pager, something easy that people can see just to get a sort of a feeling of what's out there, something less overwhelming than the whole list of devices. It probably, you know, the device type would be great to show a number of different devices, also having an international showing of people, you know, people from, you know, I'd love to get some photos from Ahmad. I thought I might reach out to Sierra Leone.
Right.
You know, maybe even, what is his name? The guy who's, I don't even know if he has a chapter. Dean Rock. He works with.
He works with quite a few people out in the
Dominican Republic, but he has a specific device that he uses, which isn't so common.
That's okay. You can still show it, no problem. Yeah, and I think it's in the catalog, so it's certainly okay to show that.
Great, and I thought I'd reach out also to Matt Botel to get some photos of the new kinetic hand. I also think it might be worthwhile to chat with him about the ability of, you know, maybe helping him to set up his efforts as enabled chapters so we can list it in with these activities. We don't have any chapters right now with a chapter spotlight in Australia, but it'd be really great to start getting the kinetic hand out there more. It seems like from what you guys have explored, it's a really great.
I agree. It's interesting. The design is fantastic and has really good potential. And Matt is doing amazing work. He's a great guy. And, you know, when we talk with him, he's, you know, he's great. He's completely engaged. He loves what we're doing. He wants to be involved. But then in between those, you know, discussions, he's pretty hard to get a hold of. He doesn't really respond well to emails. So I'm totally in favor of bringing him in a loop. I'm just saying you may have a hard time connecting with him on that. I assume it's because he stays so busy with his existing operation. I don't know.
Right, that's fair. I'll send him an email. So that was the third thing, device types international reach. Some presence of the kinetic hand, and it's great that Nate popped in at the perfect timing. So also
going to hit the mute.
Yeah. Goodbye.
What is it?
We're just talking about photos. We want to put together a gallery showing all the different kind of designs that we have available, but showing people wearing them. So any photos that you have of people wearing NIOP devices.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a push I'm about ready to do. We're trying to get that testing phase started up next, but I'll look into that.
Okay. I mean, I know you have some already. You've shared a couple with us in the past.
Yeah, and I'll hook you guys up with my marketing folder. Ben is the guy?
Yeah, Ben's the guy.
That's me.
Okay. Ben is the guy. Okay. So yeah, I'll get him a link to the marketing folder after the meeting and stuff.
Great. And then the next action item was for me to send the non-flex parts for the kinetic hand that I'd already printed to Bob. Bob, I had to reprint one set because there was a problem with one of the fingers, so that's done now. It just finished last night,
Great.
so I'll put those out today.
Great. All the flexible parts I printed now, so
Awesome.
when I get them, I can begin assembling.
Excellent. Thanks for doing that. It's a lot of work, I know.
It
I
took
have a quick question.
all week, Jeremy. It's 7
Yeah.
millimeters a second.
No, I'm talking about the assembly. That's a lot of work.
Oh, yeah, well.
Okay.
I got a quick question before we move topics. I
Yeah,
did notice there was a exchange this week with what was it? Edits to the Phoenix hand, I think.
Yeah,
that Bob is working on.
Mike Larson in Texas, right.
Yeah. When I talked to him, he seemed really interested in the kinetic hand. Is that something that
Well,
you guys want to?
we had a follow-up, we had a phone call last week, and he originally came online, and his whole effort has been to improve the Phoenix V2. We kind of recommended he look at the kinetic hand, but that wasn't his real reason. He wants to improve the Phoenix. So I said, okay, let's see if we can work together on that.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe I
I
misunderstood.
said I would make him a kinetic hand. You know, he can't make hands. He uses them.
Yeah.
I said I'd make him a kinetic hand, but he'd rather let's get the Phoenix done first.
Okay. Yeah, because when I talked to him, it sounded like he wanted to test a number of devices, and he's done videos on other devices other than the Phoenix. So
Exactly. But we both agreed in order to get some progress, let's finish one thing and then we'll go on to the next.
okay.
So,
John, you're muted.
I'd like to have, not necessarily now, but sort of a side conversation about the kinetic hand and a report that someone pointed out that, like other flexi hands, the grip is not strong and it takes a lot of force. That's been an issue since the original flexi hand. It's intrinsic to the flexible joints also in the Quawu, and I don't believe it's necessary. I think that we could do something about it if we addressed it.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I was thinking about something like that too. I think the kinetic hand grip strength is better, noticeably better than other flexi hands, because I think Matt did a really good job thinking about the physics of, you know, the way the way the hinges are placed and the angles, and I don't even know exactly what it is that goes into the amount of leverage that it takes, but I think the grip strength is better. But I agree, it's not as good as something like a Phoenix, where you have these, you don't have that resistance of the flexible hinges.
I actually tried it last week because I made all these. So I used my test hand for the flexi and the kinetic. And the feature I saw that was different is the kinetic, the thumb, if I thinking backwards here, on the kinetic, the thumb goes in underneath like that.
Yeah.
Right? On the flexi, it meets. And I think that one of the keys is that more natural grip like that. And it's not as good as the Phoenix, especially the one Mike has done, but it's better than flexi.
The other thing is, keep in mind the kinetic hand has those built-in fingertip grips, which normally we've been printing them with, you know, we 3D print those in flexible material, but that's not the ideal way to do it. The ideal way to do it is to use, he gives us a mold that you can 3D print and then use, you know, the two-part silicone to cast those tips. And when you do it that way, he says that the grip is excellent. So if you keep that in mind, that you have these really grippy embedded fingertips, even if the grip isn't as strong, it might be as effective because you've got grippier fingers. Just think
Since
about
we're having the grip digression, let me say that I think the ultimate solution, and you know, I may be driven to impersonate an engineer myself, is to have hinges. They could be like the flexible hinges, only they would simply be flaps of plastic that would bend, and to have active open as well as active close. That's the point. Even the Phoenix, when you close, you're pulling against the elastics. And yet there's no reason why you couldn't have extension opening the fingers, just as you have flexion closing the fingers. It would require a second set of strings. But I did it once on the RIT arm, and it was a totally different thing. It meant that the fingers sort of snapped open as happily as they snapped closed. It's just that no one has actually worked it through.
John, that's actually similar to how the ARC's hand works, although right now it's got elastic cables in the backs of the fingers. I've got a meeting with the guys tomorrow, my upper limb team, to go over changing those fingers to internalize the recoil spring. And right now it's using TPU printed recoils to make the elastic action. And what we're doing is we're going to kind of use the exact same scenario, but enclose them in the back of the fingers so it's not an open channel, so it looks better. And then it's going to be basically like what you're talking, although it will go up to metal springs in the back of the palm cavity to give the recoil, but they should be light enough that it doesn't give enough resistance to really counteract the grip strength. And with using transradial and transhumeral ones, that I don't know if you guys have gotten to see the cross brace system we'd set up, where you mount it to your natural arm and goes across your back down to the arm, but that dramatically increases the grip strength. I have a buddy who's got a hook that was made by my prosthetist, and that's the strap system he hooked him up with. It actually comes in lower on your side out to the arm rather than coming in up underneath your armpit. But it when you're pulling and you don't have to go all the way up to the arm and then back down the arm, it's directly from the anchor site straight down the arm, and it dramatically increases your leverage. So that can help a Kwalu, but it'll help even more to change the hand design, like what John's saying. Then you eliminate resistance, and then you have the best of both
All right,
worlds.
well,
I think we'll have something to lift.
Let's move on here, because we're kind of getting into a design session here.
Yeah,
but
no worries.
What it kind of makes me think is I maybe this has happened and I'm just not aware of it, but you know, it's been a long time since, as far as I'm aware, since we've done any kind of collaborative design work where a group of e-NABLE people have gotten together and kind of collectively talk about pros and cons of the current designs and how can we improve upon this, and kind of figuring out where to go with a new design. We haven't done that in a long time. It just kind of makes me think maybe that would be worth doing.
Do you want to be invited to Saturday?
Well, I don't necessarily want to get involved in an existing design.
Don't want to know about it that much.
I'm not looking to join the NIOP team or anything like that. But if there's a new discussion, if somebody wanted to, you know, organize just a brainstorming session to just talk about our current designs and how to make an improved one, I'd be happy to participate in the brainstorming session.
Okay, that'd be awesome. In 1 second here, Ben. I think a roundtable discussion like that would be a really good thing, and maybe the products of what we come up with this next meeting, we'll have a lot of different hand techniques and concepts that we could throw into something like that.
I mean, ideally we'd get, you know, obviously, Nate, you're one of our key designers. It would be great if we could get Matt Botel to join this meeting as well, and any of our other current designers.
And Jack.
Yeah, exactly. If we could get those guys involved in the discussion, as well as sort of, you know, makers like me and Bob and, you know, John, who have, you know, feedback, that,
right.
You know, that would be a great discussion. I don't know who's going to then take it and run with it and actually, you know, make that design, but it would be a good discussion.
Oh my gosh, Jeremy, if any of the guys on my team hear it, it's going to start happening anyways. It's good and bad.
So let me just make sure that we're all on the same page. Jeremy is picking up on something I think that we're planning for the clear mask situation, which is to try to take people like you, Nate, who are involved in specific devices and designs, and get them together with other people doing similar but different devices and designs, right, and do sort of a cross device, right, compare and contrast, in order to share ideas and try to surface things that need doing. So it's going to need a champion. I just want you to be clear that if it happens strictly within your group, we're missing the opportunity.
Oh, right. And that's what we're already doing, John. And we're looking at improving what I'm already doing with this roundtable concept and including the greater community. And Ben, you probably had an amazing, awesome point that probably counteracted everything we were saying.
No. I think we got it. Okay, moving on.
Actually, we didn't, John. I wanted to take a step back. We started talking about this because of Mike Larson. That was the initial catalyst for talking about this whole idea of cross-device design review. He's focusing now on one design doing these edits, but he's done several different device review videos. And I think it's really worthwhile for all of us to think not just about organizing all of the designers together to come up with new designs, but we need to bring in people like Mike Larson.
Yeah, no, that's what I meant when I said
this.
That's what I meant, Ben, when I said get the makers involved too. I'm talking about people like Mike, who they might not be designers, but they're people that are familiar with the designs and they have ideas about how they could be better. Those are the kind of people I want involved in this session.
Right. How do we get recipients that are using this stuff to be leading in this? And Nate's a wonderful example of somebody that's leading this stuff. But yeah, I think that really could be a prerequisite for us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it would be a good idea. The challenge with something like this is, to coordinate it. Somebody, like John said, somebody would need to take the lead. It takes, we want to get all these different designers together, makers, end users. It's something that probably has to be promoted on the hub. And then, of course, when you actually get this group together, if we're successful in drawing a lot of people into this process, well, it can be kind of challenging to, run a meeting with, 20, 30 people all having ideas they want to get out. So,
right. I mean, Mike is already working with Peregrine and some other people. So, I think that some of those networks are already happening, but that maybe would be really wonderful to encourage before focusing on a specific device. Maybe we need to establish that community voice as being really the evaluation for any of these designs.
Okay. So Jeremy is going to retake the floor, but he's going to discover that the first topic and note for today has now been fleshed out with a higher level issue that I want to discuss.
That's fine. That's fine. So let's move on. We got all of our statistics on the next page as usual. I'll let you guys look through those. The only thing I'll point out is that the only thing that jumped out at me this week was that there was a lot of likes, 47 likes this week on the hub. So just a lot of activity, a lot of people engaging, which is a good thing. Average session duration was up to almost 4 minutes as well. So I don't know, people were involved on the hub a little bit more than usual. All the other charts there, I'll let you guys review those for yourselves.
Cool.
Okay, so on to our topics. Let's see, active Lumio discussions and proposals. So we've got the SPC proposal out there now as a discussion thread, and it's got some good active discussion going on it already. I think we just let it run its course and then switch it over into a proposal or voting proposal after a week is elapsed.
I'll add the link in the chat.
Okay. So that's looking good. Discuss possible sponsored initiatives.
All right, so that's what I slipped in.
Yeah.
We had talked about a Lumio thread having to do with the whole question of what else should we be using our money for? This is partly in response to Bob's desire that we have a number of good uses of our money before we go back and ask for more. In a blog post that I did on the hub in response, it was actually a comment to an article that Ben had flagged. I realized that there were a couple of other things that might be interesting initiatives for us to be floating. One is an outreach coordinator. This is an example of something that we have learned volunteers, transient volunteers can't do, and present company has not been able to do it really systematically.
And I just want to point out, John, that I think that goes directly to this key challenge we've been discussing of an imbalance between our production capacity and the demand. an outreach person would directly benefit that situation by bringing people into the process.
Okay. So I bulleted out what I think are the first three preliminaries, which would be well worth doing, and that would lead up to developing outreach initiatives, which would address our imbalance between makers and recipients. Secondly, there is what I'm calling an impact investigator. Now, I want to say this phrase that popped up today of pictures of people wearing our devices, I think is a really valuable thing. I just want to point out that if you collected those pictures, you start coming up with a firm lower estimate of how many unique individuals have gotten what particular devices. Now, Ben and I have been having an ongoing debate about whether it would be ethical or desirable to collect pictures of people wearing devices from social media and then use the methodology that I piloted with Grecia 2 summers ago to, again, use that to say, well, look, there are this many unique individuals. They were wearing these unique devices. They're probably only a fraction of what's out there, but using this technique, we can now document, I think, up to 1,000 cases. Anyway, those are examples of what an impact investigator might do. I don't want to get into the debate right now, but those are examples of what an impact investigator might do. Either just building on the gallery that Ben is doing and is not controversial, or setting the stage for a discussion about whether we are going to violate privacy or otherwise pierce social media by trying to harvest those kinds of photos. In any case, an impact investigator, I think, is probably something that would be part of a more mature e-NABLE. Seems to me every organization that seeks funds needs to have metrics of its impact, and we don't. That's because we don't have anyone for whom that's the primary responsibility.
Right. And maybe to start out, it'll just be adding in some of this awareness into this current position that we have on Lumio as something that this person would be looking for help from the volunteer community in this effort.
It could be. I do think that this is one of those tasks that requires a stable, longer-term individual to coordinate volunteers, but also to fill all the gaps that a stable, long-term individual like you does for the things you do. Anyway, so then I threw in another one, and this is all sort of to set the stage for what might be a larger discussion within Lumio about how we might spend the money, which is a device design curator convener, which is just my generalization of the discussion we just had with Nate about Matt and Mike, and the notion of.
Well, with the addition that I'd love to have this person take over the responsibility of documenting new devices for the device catalog.
That's the curator. That's the curator part.
Yeah, that would be great.
How close is this to safe, usage studies?
Say again, Mike?
How close is this to SAFE's usage studies? Because it seems like almost something that could dovetail in with her if she was just asking for photos and stuff that went along with the cases she was looking into.
Quite right. Very close, although I don't think SAFE was trying to come up with estimates of e-NABLE's broader, entire reach.
Yeah,
but the methodology would be very much a part of this.
Well, I mean, I think that fits in better with the impact investigator than with the design curator, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Something to consider in both of these, but specifically in this design curator. Masby, in an email exchange over the last couple of days with John and I, mentioned that he really feels that the audits that we're going to be designing and sending out very shortly, sort of as the pilot for the Wishbone, second part of the Wishbone project, he'd love to include some information about the devices that people are using and have that tie into this device catalog. And really, up to now, we've been doing our best, but largely kind of arbitrarily assigning the ways of rating the devices just based on, our understanding, but basing it on data from the chapters would be wonderful in terms of popularity, for example.
Yes, for sure, and non-controversial. Agreed.
Okay, let's move along. So in terms of, I'm just looking at recent updated Lumio discussions. Is there anything to update us on with the Chapter Wishbone project at this point, Ben?
Yep. So as I mentioned, MASB is beginning to get involved again, which is wonderful. We've been talking about how often to send out the surveys and how to design them. Bob's work on the previous audit is really a wonderful place to start. It's not just going to be the numbers that we get this time, but it's going to be comparing them to some of the results that we got in the past. That really gives us a sense of where things are going. Jeremy, do you have Bob's previous audit that you can send me?
Audit.
Drive, wasn't it?
Audit of what?
The chapters.
Chapter audit. Remember when we sent out the questionnaire to chapters about volunteers and devices, and we got back about 35 or 40 responses, Jeremy?
Is that what you're looking for? Is just the reform responses?
Yep.
Yeah, I've got those.
That'd be great. So as a first step, I'll take the responses that Bob had collected and I'll put those into the current spreadsheet that we have that'll populate the chapter map. That's something that can happen, in the next couple of days. And we'll go from having 6 chapters that have some data on their activities to maybe 40. Then the next steps from there will be setting up potentially a database instead of a spreadsheet that MASB is interested in organizing, and he can set up admin access based on the hub. He's got a big idea about it. We've been going back and forth on the structure, but I think it's going to be a lot easier to have it be a sustainable thing for us.
I intend to do another audit in the next several days and ask the same questions again. We'll see how many. It's been a year and a half since I did an audit anyway, so.
It might be worth holding on that, Bob, because if we're going to send out an automated audit,
Okay.
that'll be just a reoccurring thing. And
Okay.
the idea for that audit would be an annual questionnaire that would be a little bit more extensive, and then quarterly, just a few questions, something really easy.
So I won't be sending out one in the next couple of days.
Ben, I just put the link to the responses in the chat for you.
Great.
All right. Anything else?
I guess I'm trying to think if there's anything worth discussing. There was some back and forth that MASB and I had about the consequences of not being active. I think initially, and this is something to ask Bob, initially his audit was focused at activity in the last 6 months, correct?
It was, are you active or not?
Okay, but at one point we took chapters off the map that were deemed inactive.
We're talking about 2 different things I did. 2 summers ago, I sent out, and I was trying to find out who was active and who wasn't. There were no questions. And I looked at Facebook pages, I did it through emails. Okay, I removed a lot of chapters at that point, scalped it. Okay. Then a year ago or so, we did the questions, and that's what Jeremy just put out.
Got it.
So I did not do any scalping as a result of that.
Okay. And do you have the scalped chapters in a list somewhere?
Yeah, well, I mean, I have inactive chapters, yeah.
Okay, great. So I guess the next steps for MASB and John and I in terms of setting up this audit system is figuring out that process. So initially we thought, send out a survey. If we don't hear a response, they'd be sort of have an orange tag as still being considered active, but then if we don't hear back from the second survey, so again, this is 6 months, then they'd be labeled inactive, but still on the map. And then after the third survey, so this is now 3 quarters into the year, they'd be taken off the map if they don't respond.
I think what we're going to find is pandemic effect here, because there are active chapters that just are moribund right now because they can't do anything.
Right,
But
correct.
they still want to exist.
Yeah, and there's also issues with, sometimes emails change. I know in Colombia that one of the chapters changed names to Humanos 3D, and the emails are different. But I guess that gives us, if we send out the first one, it gives us up to 6 months to manually chase after some of these chapters. And Jeremy and Bob and I have seen in the exchanges with the Colombian chapters that sometimes it takes messaging several times and Facebook, but it would give us 6 months to check their Facebook. Are they still active and they're just not responding? And we can sort of label things on our end to try to figure out what to do.
What I will send you, Ben, is I have my own spreadsheets I created. We have the form response where the official chapter stuff comes in.
Yeah.
Then I created my own spreadsheet that I sort by country, and I sort by active and inactive by date. And that includes inactive chapters that have never answered. So these are data that go beyond just the input form. I'll send you those sheets.
That'd be great.
And you can, I use them to update. And when I report X number of chapters, I know because I have the running total of active and inactive at any point in time.
And
Right.
Ben, you and Masvi are now doing some great in-depth discussion of what this plan is going to be. I suggest that you write it out, and Masvi wrote a proposal once before, but you've now synthesized that into the Wishbone project. This whole framework that you're talking about should be laid out so that we can review it. And I'd suggest that you vet it with Bob, who of course has been dealing with chapters a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, we've had a long email exchange going back and forth. I will condense that into what I think are our specific proposals for this process. And I'll send it to you guys. So that's the part 2 of the Wishbone. The part 1 is also moving along. Bob and Evan and I have gotten PayPal set up. We did set up some links on the chapter sharing page. The next steps will be connecting that to the other accounts, and Open Collective, setting up the admins on that page, and coming up with the documentation for how it all works. What are the templates that are involved with requests and the parameters for that.
Let me say that what's going on there is I had hoped to keep this whole Wishbone project separate from Rochester e-NABLE Limited for auditing and tax purposes, but that really doesn't work out. Happily, Evan, who is an accountant, is now helping us clean up our QuickBooks and our accounting for Rochester e-NABLE Limited. And that will, so it's not a net drain on my limited resources for administering that. Part of the architecture is that we're setting up a PayPal account, which will actually be the bank account for the Chapter Wishbone project. Rather than that money going into the Rochester e-NABLE Limited bank account, we'll just have that whatever loose money there is in what's meant to be sort of the collective petty cash fund in that PayPal account. So that's just a preview of the way this is going. Again, it's going to have to be documented so that we have adequate structural transparency, but it's underway, and Evan is being a great resource. And let me add, and we found Evan through our newbie orientation sessions, which is another benefit of these periodic newbie orientation sessions that Ben and Safe and Ricardo have been doing every month or so. Okay.
So that's the long answer for what's new.
Yeah, that's the update.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move along here, folks. SPC discretionary fund allocation. So we did get our first write-up on Lumio. So we have a discussion thread going now for the media coordination effort, but I would still like to move forward with proposing what we've been talking about, where some portion of the funds in the Enable Fund can be allocated by the SPC to cover just, infrastructure costs, things that just, it doesn't make sense to put up for a vote, things that just need to be done. So I think we would need, in order to do that, we would need to first write up the proposal to get the community's buy-in for that. So we need to, the proposal, I guess, would be seeking the community's approval for us to have this discretionary authority over some portion of the funds. And we would list out some examples. I don't think it needs to be an exhaustive list, but we would list out some examples of the kinds of things that would be approved and the kinds of things that would not be covered under this. But I would like to see us proceed with getting that written up. Does anybody see any reasons we should be waiting?
No, I don't see any reason. I want to point out that present company sees the existing Lumio proposal as a step in that direction, but I don't think we've communicated to the community adequately. We're really talking about this sort of a new structural element.
Yeah, I didn't really see much of that in there. I mean, I maybe just the fact that it's being sponsored or written up by the SPC is a stepping stone, but yeah, I didn't see much in the proposal itself that talks about this discretionary fund allocation idea. So I don't see any reason why we would need to wait for that current, proposal to play out. I think it's just a question of who has the bandwidth to write this one up. Does anybody have interest in taking a stab at this?
Jeremy, I think on this one, you're really the right guy. You have the most skin in the game, and you have, I think, the clearest vision of what needs to happen.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay.
As you know, if you give me just a little bit to work on, I will then jump in, but I think you should structure it.
Okay.
Let me add to that one, just as a footnote, given today's email exchange with Jen and Maria. I think we should just take on Enabling the Future's web hosting bills so that Jen doesn't have to worry about getting reimbursed.
Well, yes and no. We can take that on in the sense of whenever those bills come up, we just pay them. We can't take them on in the sense of transferring that into the name of, one of us or whatever. We've gone down that path before, and Jen was not willing to give up ownership of the domain and the website. So
then we should talk about that, because while she's not willing to give up ownership, she has.
Did you freeze again?
He's balancing something in his head very carefully.
He's right. It's always at the good parts too that he freezes.
He'll be back. I was going to mention, Jeremy, if you can make a list, I mean, obviously of some of the things that have been covered that the SPC would be able to sort of cover with this effort, it'd be really helpful. I think a lot of people just don't realize all the things that are involved and the systems that are in place that are required for the work that's being done.
Right.
That's a good point.
All right, John, what were you saying?
To make a long diatribe short, we need somehow to simplify the process when Enabling the Future is involved, because the current process leads Jen to think that we're holding out on her, and I'm just trying to respond to clear requests as they come in.
Well, that whole email thread is getting really convoluted, and then Maria jumps in and starts talking about giving her the money we owe her from Google. That's ancient history. That's all done. We're talking about the hosting fees for Enabling the Future. So it's just the voting thing. She doesn't want to have to write up a Lumio proposal every time she needs $100 reimbursement for the domain, which I think is reasonable.
Of course.
So I'm going to write it up for her this time, just so that we're sticking with our current process. We'll get her reimbursed for 2019, 2020. And if this gets approved, then, we don't need to have the Enabling the Future website in our name or anything. It's just when it comes up for renewal, she'll shoot us an email saying, hey, here's my bill for $100, and we pay it.
That's exactly where she falls down. If she gets a bill and she either doesn't send it to us or she forgets that she sent it to us. And if she does send it to us, she forgets whether we paid her back or not. And then a year later, we go through the current cycle. So this is the loop I want to tighten. We don't have to solve this here in SPC.
Well, we need to have records of that anyway. excuse me, right now we have our only records right now is what you dumped a spreadsheet, which was coming from our open collective records, I assume.
That's right.
So if under this new program where we have this discretionary spending, are people still going to go through open collective to get their funds, or are we just going to pay things? And if we
Well,
just pay things, how does that get recorded? How does it get logged? I mean, there's just some things we have to
my point is that I think that this SPC discretionary fund should define certain recurring costs, like Jen's things, which are part of our ongoing mandate and don't require pre-approval. Once
Right.
that's done, we might even arrange to send the hosting fee proactively without waiting for a bill once a year.
Sure, sure. I'm just saying that as long as we do some kind of record keeping, whether it's by making sure all these transactions go into open collective or putting them into a spreadsheet or whatever, we'll have the records. We'll know what's been paid.
Let me say, we have the record.
Okay.
And I shared it with Jen.
Yeah.
But she doesn't want to look at it carefully enough. So now I am stuck with the responsibility of trying to figure out which checks she cashed, which checks she received, and so on. The point is, typically there's the invoicer and the invoicee, and they have their respective roles. In this case, Jen is not up to playing her role, even though she does things that are so valuable that we are happy to find a way to accommodate her. So we need to do that.
Fair enough. All right. So we'll keep working on it. We'll make it as simple as we can. But first step is to write something up for discussion, and I'll take care of that. We already covered the Chapter Wishbone project. So next topic here is handbag as a corporate giving. Thank you. I'm going to send all the parts that I have printed today to Bob. So he's already printing all the flexible parts. We'll be able to get the bags started. Now, what else do we need to go in there? Does somebody need to order shirts? Does somebody need to come up with some kind of printouts to put in there? What else do we need to do for these bags?
Well, we had other collateral stuff that we were going to put in, so it doesn't make sense. I mean, somebody's got to physically put this together and mail them, right?
Okay.
Which I'm happy to do. So I'll have the hands. I'll need any other schwaffle we want to put in, and we're going to put a letter in, right? Which Ben said he'd help me draft.
So here's another great example of where SPC being able to allocate some funds would be a good thing. What am I going to do? Write up a proposal now to spend some money on t-shirts? I mean, come on.
No,
How about shipping cost? It's not going to be trivial.
I think the point is, this is an anticipated annual cycle of sending thank yous to our donors. As an anticipated recurring annual thing, it should be part of this SPC package.
Yeah, I agree. But for right now, so that we don't hold things up, we might need to write up a proposal.
Well, realistically, Jeremy, it's going to take me 2 to 4 weeks to get everything together, right? I mean, assemble these things and.
Okay, so maybe we try to get this proposal out there for the discretionary funding and hope to get that approved in time.
Exactly. I would like to set a target middle February to be able to send stuff out.
Okay, then I'll try to do that as soon as possible.
Yeah, so
Okay, that's a good idea. That'll take care of that. So I'll work on getting that written up. We have to let it run for a week. It is a discussion and then a week under voting. So best case scenario, 2 weeks out from now, we'll have that authority.
sure.
Okay. Fundraising. What do you have to report, Bob?
I've got a dog and a wife behind me, so I'll put the video off here. Nothing more to report, other than, again, we had some discussion earlier this week. My concern is that when we go out and ask for more money, we have to be able to articulate what we want the money for.
Yes.
And I don't feel comfortable being able to say that to somebody, because we have $30,000 now that we really don't know what we're doing with, what we're going to do with it. So and we got another 40,000, right? 20, 40, 50,000 over the next 2 years coming in, right?
We're working on it.
January.
Four
Right.
and 10.
January
What are we
15th,
gonna
we
do
got,
with $50,000? Now, if we, why are we gonna go out and get another 20 or 30? What are we gonna say?
Well, so Bob, I think maybe it's appropriate for you to post something new on the hub. I know we've put a note out there saying we have funds available, please write up your projects. Maybe we need to go a step beyond that and explain what you just explained. Folks, we have money. We are not going to be able to get more money unless we can show that we've used this money well.
Yeah.
We need you to write up projects. I mean, instead of just inviting them to, maybe we need to make it clear that we need our volunteers to write up some projects.
Good idea, and I can do that now. How does that dovetail with us wanting a certain piece of the action in terms of ability
I
to
don't
spend?
think it, I don't see it changing that. I mean, we're still going to ask for that authority, which will be, I don't know if it's going to be some amount that we'll have discretionary authority over or some percentage of whatever's in the fund. We'll have to figure that out. But either way, there's still going to be a big chunk of funds there that needs to be used by our volunteer
Should I
community.
quote exact numbers like I just did?
I think it's fine to let them know what's in the fund, what's available. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it may not be available if the SBC has control over some of it. That's
Understood, but that'll be laid out in our proposal. So right now, all we need to let them know is, hey, we have this much in our fund. We need to use it in order to be able to get more. Separate from that, we're going to have this write-up where we'll talk about some discretionary fund allocation.
enough.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
I think
Yep.
that's fine.
Bob, I'll have official stats for you too, because we're going to go register a couple of these devices with the FDA, and then we'll have lots of paper trail for you to back up funding requests and other kinds of like allocations of the funds. So.
Okay, so coming down here to this, we keep coming back to this long-term concern that Bob brought up a while back, having to do with this imbalance between our production capacity and the demand side of e-NABLE right now. And we've got a number of different threads going in terms of how we're potentially dealing with this. I just wanted to give an update on the one piece, which is we're using Google Ads to do some outreach now. I'll just give you an update on how that's going. I'll share my screen here. If I can get to my right tab. So we do have it's just one ad going right now for free 3D printed devices. And what we're looking at here is over the last 30 days, we've had that ad has been displayed to 2,839 people. Of those people, 245 have clicked through to Enabling the Future. And then of those 245, 40 of them have gone on to click through to the hub or to Enable Web Central. That's what I have set up as a conversion right now. So that just gives you a sense of what's happening. It's not as good as I'd like to see more than this, but it's working. We're at least we're drawing people in. We're getting people that may not have found us previously. So I don't know how much I'm going to still work on this. I'm going to still try to get it to where it's, showing up more, but at this point, at least it's working, and we're seeing conversions. We're seeing people clicking through.
Yeah, those rates seem pretty good to me.
Yeah, I mean, a conversion rate of 16% is phenomenal. So what that means is of those people that click through to Enabling the Future, a good percentage of them are actually browsing around. They're actually clicking through to the hub or to Enable Web Central. In other words, they're engaging. They're getting involved. So that's a good number. Yeah. I'd just like to see, over 30 days, I'd like to see a lot more than 2,800 impressions and more than 245 clicks, but compared to nothing, not bad.
Well, that probably means expand the budget, right?
No, I've got the budget set way higher than it's being used right now. I mean, right now I've got,
Nice.
well, it's saying the cost is, so it spent $582. Maybe you're right. I'll go ahead and change this. We're not paying for it anyway, so the idea that I can even set a budget seems silly. I'll just double it to 1,000 and see what happens.
Good.
Anyway, so it's working. I'll just keep working on making it better, but I'm hoping that will help to start to draw people into the process that we weren't capturing otherwise.
Sure, thank you.
Great.
We were on fundraising. I just want to see whether Isabella, who's just beginning her course on fundraising, has anything to throw in.
Good point. I'm sorry I didn't bring that up. Thank you.
Like updates wise, I just short update. I wrote up the first draft of the proposal of my internship. I sent it to John. So once we get some approval from that, we'll move forward and yeah, it will be officially a class.
So that's great, Isabella. We have a problem in SPC meetings because people assume that since most of the people were in on the conversation, everyone knows what you're referring to.
Sorry.
This is the challenge. In 1 to 2 sentences, what is the essence of the proposal you just alluded to?
Basically, the essence of the proposal is for my internship, wow, 2 sentences is very short to do this. I will use my internship to help secure funding for the media correspondent role by conducting interviews with our current funders, as well as work on expanding the funding portfolio.
That was only 1 sentence,
One
and it
sentence,
was
nice.
perfect.
Thank you.
Isabella, in
helpful.
fairness, John edits a lot of our documents. He doesn't know what 2 sentences are either.
That's well said.
Well, thank you, Isabella. Anything that you need from us to help you with that? Any support that you need?
At the moment, we should be all set. We had a really great meeting on Monday. Bob sent me a lot of information. So once I get approval for the proposal, I can submit it to my advisor and then I can make sure I get credit. So the next step right now is just to move the proposal forward.
Great. Okay, thanks for doing that. Okay, so does anybody else have any thoughts or comments about what we're calling the long-term e-NABLE concern?
Well, Jeremy, just a peripheral comment. I did what was suggested by everybody last week in terms of this concierge service.
Mm-hmm.
2 people came into the help desk, said, I need a hand. I said, great. Let me know when you can be online. They were in the US. Next step is we'll arrange a session.
Yeah.
Nada, nothing yet.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. What again?
That is bizarre. I mean, you
So
got somebody offering to hold your hand and get
I
you a
follow
free
directions
prosthetic.
from this group.
I don't get it. I don't get it.
Yeah, you
This is
know,
a weird year too.
what?
This is a weird year too. There's a lot, just
Right.
craziness
I
everywhere.
know, it's just, what's weird. What's weird is it's not like we're going out and soliciting people.
Exactly.
They're coming to us saying, can I have a hand, please?
Somebody took an
I
effort.
hear you. It's volunteers are a finicky bunch, right?
Especially in Colorado.
That could be true too. That might be part of it. Hey, if I can snag 30 seconds of your time here towards the end, it doesn't need to be right now, but
We
within the
are
next 3
towards
minutes?
we are towards the end, so go ahead.
Okay, can I share the screen?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, excellent.
2 sentences, Nate.
Oh, I'm not even
Oh,
going to use
no.
any. Check this out. Can you guys see?
It's still
Not
loading.
yet.
Okay,
Yes.
Okay.
Now we do.
now we're ready. Okay.
Nice.
Nice.
Did you guys get the printer noises too? Were they pro?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
we did. We
So
did.
at the end, it's gonna freeze on the NIOP thing, and then we're gonna have like light shining through the panes of the NIOP letters, and it's gonna make a lightsaber swing noise, like. So that was Dan, and what I'm trying to get. Okay, here I'll stop sharing. So what I want to do is have Dan do one of those for e-NABLE as well. I mean, the e-NABLE logo's on the front of the little printer as it's zooming in, but it's real subtle. And this is for NIOP. I want to do one for e-NABLE. So at the beginning of all the videos that we're doing, e-NABLEs will come up first, then it'll go into the NIOP one, and then it'll go into the video, just like a production company would be using in a normal video.
Nice.
Well, Ben, we already paid somebody to develop video intros and outros for e-NABLE, so we have those. Unless you wanted to do something different, we already have those. We went through a whole process. We had about a dozen of them generated, and we all voted on our favorite, and we selected one. So we have that.
Can I get access to those?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
we'd like to use them.
I'll send them to you.
Okay.
Okay. Does anybody have anything else? Otherwise, we're at the top of the hour here. Good time to wrap up. Have a good week, all.
Awesome. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.